Welcome back to 3 and Out here on the Southern Pigskin, our radio network. Kevin Thomas, BJ Bennett, Matt Osborne coming to you live. Day number 4 here at SEC Media Days. It's Ole Miss, it's LSU, it's Georgia here in the final day at SEC Media Days. And again, I want to give a big shout out, guys, to the folks at Comfort and Homewood. Made our stay so nice while we were here at SEC Media Days. And if you're in the Hoover and Birmingham area, Comfort and Homewood, great place to stay and rest your mind. I know we've been pushing it here the last several days, and some of the off-air discussion gets a little crazy at times there, BJ. But today it's Georgia in the house. Joining us from Bulldog Illustrated, good friend of the show, Murray Poole joins us. And Murray, it's been a 4-day grind, and Mark Rick and company bringing it up here the final day with Les Miles and Hugh Freeze. But I thought interesting earlier today. Obviously pressed about the quarterback situation and was kind of non-committal. He didn't, at least in the quote sheet I have, did not mention Bryce Ramsey's name. Did not mention anybody's name, just said, hey, we got 29 practices before the first game. We'll figure it out. How surprised is that gamesmanship? Do you think he really doesn't know? What does that mean about the quarterback situation right now?
I think he and Coach Schottenheimer know more than they're saying. But I think, Kevin, he don't want those 3 guys to think that one of them's got the job, because they are pretty close. And I asked him about Lambert. The beat media got to meet with him upstairs before we went in the big room, and he said about Lambert, he's been on the campus a couple of days so far, but he said he's really impressed with his maturity, and a strong arm and the way he handles things. And I think they knew what they were getting with this kid, of course, from nearby Jessup, Wayne County. And he had some good games against at Virginia, especially I think BJ could vouch the Florida State game. He maybe threw a couple touchdown passes, looked good. But like you say, he's non-committal all of them. But, the depth chart was released in the media guide this week, and it had Ramsey number 1. But Coach Rick, again, jumped on that, tweeted out, and he doesn't usually tweet, but he tweeted out real quick, don't read anything of that. That's just the way we're starting the depth chart. They're all equal, and he expects a really fierce battle when they start August 4th.
Murray, Georgia, the preseason favorite in the East. I think that's obvious, and most people feel that way. How big is the margin between Georgia and everybody else, whether it's Tennessee, Missouri, whoever?
I think it's real close, BJ. Tennessee, everybody knows, a trendy pick to maybe do things in the East, and I'm impressed with them as I look at all the starters they have coming back, and the quarterback and Jalen Hurd, the running back, and they look strong, and they've got those offensive line almost back intact, just like Georgia does. So, and of course, a big game playing Georgia in Knoxville after the Bulldogs play Alabama on October 3rd. So, I don't think there's much margin. I think Florida's going to be better. Under first-year coach, is going to be reinvigorated a little bit, certainly. South Carolina, I don't think Spurrier wants to stay down. You hear these rumors that he may hang it up soon, may getting close to his retirement after his long, great career. But I think you want to see Steve Spurrier. He wants to come back and get South Carolina really to that SEC East championship before he leaves. And so I think it's a close margin. Georgia maybe have more returning starters. And you go in a lot on Nick Chubb, of course, being a Heisman candidate, leading that backfield and being able to. I was working on a story a while ago on John Theus, and looked, and they led the SEC in rushing 257 yards a game last year. They had those 4 starters back, and he thinks they're going to be even better on the offensive front this year, and with Chubb and Sonny Michel and all running behind them. So I think Georgia, I rightfully think I picked them to win the East, BJ, but to your question, as I kind of tried to explain a little bit here, it's real close, and I think really one of any 3 teams could jump up and go to Atlanta this year.
What do you expect to see year 2 of the Jeremy Pruitt defense?
I think the main thing, Matt, they know each other so much better. He knows what guys can do it, what guys that can't. You take like Dominique Sanders. We didn't even hear much about him before the year started, and this guy became a starter. And he's one of the leaders in the backfield, had 2 interceptions in the bowl game. He just identified those that, no matter their reputation before he came, that can play, and those that can't play the kind of football he wants. And I think he's really solidified that defensive secondary with Mager, and Dominique Sanders certainly, and Malcolm Parrish. So I think they're going to be a step up, much better. They usually are in their coordinator's second year. And I think the defensive front, especially if we can get some help from Trenton Thompson, and I might say that John Theus told me during the summer player-only workouts, I was just writing that he's really been impressed with Tristan Thompson. Said not only is he a bull rusher, but the guy's got some technique too, and he's just especially impressed with Roquan Smith. We know Coach Larry Harrell. He played for Coach Larry Harrell, now the New Brunswick High coach at Macon County. Roquan Smith, and like I've heard before, John Thea said he looks very much like Alec Ogletree, where he could go from sideline to sideline, cover the whole field with his outstanding speed.
Murray, I mentioned, and rightfully so, people talking about Nick Chubb, and I'm sure Margaret wasn't asked about that, but how do you utilize Nick Chubb? And I say this, he's a Heisman Trophy candidate, but we've seen great backs. Heck, one on Georgia last year, and Todd Gurley. We've seen guys at other schools. It's tough to be a 20, Marcus Lattimore, South Carolina, be that 25 to 30 carry a game guy and make it 14, 15 games. How do you kind of, did Mark Richter address any of that? How do you kind of weigh that out when knowing you need Nick Chubb, but you especially need him in the big games?
Yeah, I think Nick Chubb, just the 1 year we saw him, Kevin, he looks more durable than Gurley. He doesn't run high like Gurley does. He runs behind his pads, runs low, and if any guy could resemble a Herschel Walker with 30 carries a game, I think this guy could. And that said, though, Coach Rick has emphasized several times we don't want him to carry it 30 times with the backs we got. We want them all fresh. You know, you give a 10 to 15 carries maybe to Sonny Michel if he stays well. He's been injury prone, of course, last year. And also, and he mentioned he went right on down and listed the backs today, you know, and he got down to A.J. Turman. He said he's right now, the 4-string back. But he said he really came on in the spring. Keith Marshall certainly. And, Douglas, he's high on all of them. And the way he talks, they're all going to get carries. So I don't think you're going to see Chubb. I believe you'll see him carry it 20-something times a game, but not much over that because they want him fresh and they have great confidence in these three backs behind him.
All right, Murray, you referenced it, so I'll bring it up. How does Chubb compare in terms of his abilities to Herschel Walker?
Well, one thing, I think he's got a little more of a quick stutter step when he hits the line than Herschel did. Herschel didn't try to juke many people, BJ. But yet, and he can run over people. He doesn't come down. I think we saw him that first run against Clemson. He came off the bench, and we said, wow, you know, he hit the sideline, broke about two or three tackles. One time lost his shoe, keeps going. So I think his tackle breaking ability is right there with Herschel. The one he doesn't have is that Olympic sprinter speed that Herschel could just kick it to another gear, 4.340, you know, when he even if he bounced off a defensive back or a linebacker, and once he got that step, you know, he was gone. That said, Nick Chubb was a sprinter in high school, a 100-meter champion. He's fast. You saw the 80-yard run off the goal line against Louisville last year in the Belk Bowl. He was caught from an angle, but still it was a fast defensive back that had to catch him. He's very fast. Some said he's even faster than Todd Gurley on the straightaway, you know, if you try to put him up and line him in a 40-yard dash. But, that was probably the only little difference I see. The defensive back last year at an angle wouldn't have cost Herschel Walker if he'd have broke the open field. As Herschel greatly illustrated with a 76-yard run against South Carolina his freshman year when three guys had an angle on him and he still took it the distance.
Murray, in my mind, I think it's pretty clear that Georgia's the most talented team in the East, but we know that the most talented team doesn't always win. How much could the schedule really come into play and affect things, considering the fact that Georgia's going to have to play Alabama and Auburn, the two perceived favorites in the West?
Yeah, Matt, I think certainly that October 3rd and October 10th game, Alabama at home, Tennessee on the road, that's big. I've said before, big as Alabama game's going to be, and I think maybe game day could be there. If you had to lose one of the two, you'd probably rather lose to Alabama than the Tennessee game because Tennessee, you know, in your division, and you've got to get to Atlanta first. I think they could lose to Alabama and still get to the Dome and play them again maybe, you know, depending if Alabama holds off Auburn in the West. But like you say, Auburn on the road is going to be tough. Auburn's going to be seeking great revenge from that 34-7 loss to Georgia last year between the hedges when Georgia just completely corralled Nick Marshall up, and Chubb and Gurley had great games before. Unfortunately, Gurley got hurt in the end of his college career. So, yeah, like you say, the schedule's big, and I think it's going to take great mindset, great focus, and from the coaching staff down to every player, down to the trainer, to perform 2 straight weeks against Alabama and Tennessee to your utmost potential. And that's what it's going to take, I think, for this Georgia team to be the kind of team that their fans are expecting them to be this year.
Murray Poole joining us here on Radio Row. All right, Murray, the The order of finish comes out today, and we've debated it with a number of folks all week. How did you possibly figure out the West? How did you have the West in your ballot?
I like Auburn. I think Auburn's going to be better, but I'm not as high on them as a lot of people are. Jeremy Johnson, had a great opening game last year, filled in for Nick Marshall, suspended, 240 yards in the first half of that opening game, and he's got a great arm, but, we haven't seen this guy under fire a whole season, and, the big reason I think everybody's picking Auburn, Kevin, to be the big turnaround is, of course, Will Muschamp. I think he's going to take that defense from shoddy as it was a lot last year. 55 points against Alabama, 34 against Georgia he gave up. Can they jump that high? I'm just not that high on Auburn until I see it. Alabama, only 2 starters back on offense, but talking to a guy like Kenyon Drake, I talked to him yesterday, and, of course, he's a Georgia boy. He's coming back. He's the fastest guy on the team, and I think he's going to really give that backfield some great input and really help Derrick Henry there, and it's all along can Jake Coker come along at quarterback. That said, due to Saban's record and their tradition, I stayed with Alabama 1, Auburn 2, and then I think I had LSU 3. But guys, as I wrote the feature on Arkansas yesterday, I'm really impressed with those Hogs. I mean, with Brandon at quarterback and those 2 running backs, the only tandem in the country that, ran for 1,000 yards each, the 2 guys, Jonathan Williams, Surley, and Alex. They look very good, and our offensive line, with 9 starters overall back on that offense. Arkansas, and if there's a trendy pick in the East with Tennessee, make that the same for the Hogs. And I think Brett Beliemer's really bringing them along. And, they could be the surprise in the West. I don't pick them over Alabama, Auburn right now, but it would surprise me to see them beat either one of those teams this year.
Going to be tricky out there in the West for sure. Murray, always a pleasure catching up with you. Thanks so much for joining us here on Radio Row at SEC Media Days. We appreciate it.
Always glad to see you guys, especially as far away from home, and seeing you behaving. That's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you a lot.
We'll come back with more 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network.